From the top racing venues on the continent, the top drivers, manufacturers, and the top race professionals in the business. North America's premier street stock championship, it's the Motorola Cup. Clear blue skies, miles and miles of white sandy beaches, famous around the world as a holiday resort. It's Daytona Beach, Florida. Race fans have been coming here for decades. You know, it's kind of hard to believe when you look at these tranquil images that they used to race cars here on the beach. I'm Jim Martin, and joining me for today's broadcast is Tom Natchu. Tom, you've been to Daytona lots of times. It's really quite a place, isn't it?
Oh, thanks very much, Jim. Yes, many, many times. And Daytona is quite a place. A virtual mecca for race fans. And just 10 minutes from those tranquil scenes of the beach where they used to race those stock cars. Here, now, a world-famous cathedral of speed. Daytona International Speedway, a fitting place for the inaugural race in the Motorola Cup. 4 classes of cars in Grand Sports, Sports, Touring, and Compact, featuring the top manufacturers from around the world. 4 classes of cars, including the Grand Sports, where these Camaros, Mustangs, BMWs, Ferraris, ACURA, and SXs compete. In the sports class, the chief protagonists, BMW, Toyota, and Acura, racing just as hard with a little less weight and a little less power. There is Devon Powell's brand new road racing Firebird. Doesn't get much cleaner than that, Jim.
Well, it doesn't even have a number on it yet. The top category, the Grand Sport cars with bigger engines, bigger power to weight ratio. Last year's winner in the Canadian Series, Devon Powell, who just turned 20. You believe it? Co-driving the General Motors Pontiac Firebird factory team car prepared by Wheel to Wheel Racing. And actually, that's a pretty fair team, Doug Goad and Devon Powell together in that automobile.
Yeah, Doug Goad and Devon Powell teaming up is kind of like the old and the new. Certainly Doug Goad has started well over 200 of these street stock championships. A look at Daytona International Speedway from the front windshield of this beautiful new Pontiac Firebird.
New indeed, right off the trailer and onto the racetrack. Even in the first of the practices, it was a quick car.
Now, this team is being managed by John Powell, Devon's father, himself a pretty accomplished racer who had a lot of success driving Formula Atlantic cars in the 1970s. You know, he brought Devon to the track before he was even a year old, saw him through years of karting, now is prepared a car for Devon to take his first assault at a North American championship.
Now, Devon's going to be teamed up for the Motorola Cup for '98 with veteran driver Doug Goad, the '93 American champion.
Not only can Doug drive the wheels off a race car, but because he's got so many starts, the strategy that he brings to this team is going to be invaluable.
And Devon is really looking forward to this season.
We found a pretty good rhythm between the two of us. We run a couple races last year, and it seems it's better that I start and he finish. We'll let the car run wherever it feels like running. If that's in the lead, that's fine. If it's in the top 5, that's fine too. My job's to conserve the car, leave enough left for Doug when he gets in to make a battle of it at the end.
Now, Doug Goad's been racing Pontiac since back in 1985, and well, Pontiac's the most successful team in the history of the American Street Stock Series. And this year, one of the most significant evolutions in street stock racing is the new LS1 aluminum engine.
Everything about the engine is different from the old LT1 that we ran last year, and prior to that, the predecessor that's been around for about 35 years. They've done everything from changing the firing order of the engine to the way the cranks is located, and I think the only thing that's common between the two engines basically is the connecting rod, as far as I know. It seems like a really good power plant. This is the first race for it. As far as I know, it's never been raced anywhere before. We're learning a lot about it right now. It has some peculiar quirks about it relative to the oiling and things like that. But I think we got all those sorted out during practice. The engine looks real good right now.
Now, last year's American champion was the Phoenix American Motorsports team from Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. Back at Daytona, they had 4 Pontiac Firebirds out on the track. Team owner Joe Aquilante with quite a crew, including 2 of the best drivers on the continent, and we usually saw Stu HAYNER behind the wheel first. He started in the car.
In an endurance race like this 2-hour race at Daytona, HAYNER will start the race, trying to get in a good position at the front of the pack, conserve the car, especially those brakes, so that when John HEINRICY gets in the car, there's something left to take the win. And at Daytona, things went as well as you could expect, with HEINRICY grabbing the pole.
Well, Joe's put together a heck of an organization over the last few years. Back in 1993, when Joe started up, he had a goal to reach the championship in 2 years. And he said, well, he was 1 year off. We got it in 95 and then followed it up with a championship in 96. So, you know, Joe's doing a good job.
Among the other teams to keep an eye out for this year, the Multimatic Motorsports Ford Mustangs, Scott Maxwell and Jason Priestley. And actually, you know, hey, that Jason Priestley actor kid from Hollywood's doing okay as a driver.
A correction here in this International Championship, Jason Priestley hails from Vancouver, British Columbia. Indeed, quite a driver. So when we come back, the start of the race from Daytona and the North American Street Stock Championship round number 1. Should be quite a race, Jim.
The Motorola Cup, the North America Street Stock Championship, brought to you by Motorola. And by Deringer, International Freight Forwarders, Customs Brokers, Warehousing, and Distribution, your partner for complete logistics solutions.
And by Sunoco Ethanol Enhanced Ultra 94, the gasoline that powers the Motorola Cup.
We'll be back with highlights from round 1 of the Motorola Cup from Daytona right after this. Welcome back. It's round number 1 of the 1998 Motorola Cup season from Daytona International Speedway. On board with Stu Hayner now in that 32 Pontiac Firebird, currently in first place. You can tell it's first because there is nobody in front of him.
Stu Hayner definitely comfortable on this track, but a lot of drivers aren't for their first time here. Here's Andy Linder going into that bus stop chicane, losing it at the exit, going right across the track into the grass. No harm done, though. Gets it started right back up and goes back into the battle.
Great battle in compact class, too. Didier Scranton gets up close and real personal with a rear quarter panel of Ag Magner's Oldsmobile Achieva, and it didn't really pay any big dividends as the Oldsmobile still led out of that corner. Great battle, though.
From atop the roof of Stu Hayner's car, driving an excellent race in the lead of this thing, approaching 150 miles an hour in the tri-oval area as he hits the brakes hard going down into turn 1, 6th, 5th, 4th gear as he makes that left-hand turn into turn number 1.
Hey, a great view courtesy of the roof cam on top of the Pontiac as we get a look at the racetrack that the stock car guys never see. In the pits, though, his teammate John Heinricy waiting patiently.
Devin Powell, the first among the top 5 to pit. They had a little problem in the pit area as the crew forgot to tighten up the left rear wheel. Overall, Devin very happy with his new ride.
Yeah, it's not too bad. I mean, for a brand new car right out of the box, unproven motor and drivetrain, I think it's not too bad.
Hey, it wasn't the newest of the race cars, and actually wasn't the newest of the race car drivers either at Daytona Beach that came through in the end. John Heinricy and Stu Hayner and Joe Aquilante's Phoenix American Motorsports Pontiac Firebird, though. Hey, full measure for the victory as they get by a couple of the back markers, deal with some of the oil in the windscreen, and the sun going down to the west, too, to come through with a victory at the checkered flag.
Well, the Phoenix American Motorsport team very happy as John Heinricy brings that car by the start-finish line for the very last time. Out of Yorba Linda, California, Stu Hayner splitting his time between this series and the Trans Am series as well this year. John Heinricy is co-driver. He's the chief engineer on the Camaro and Firebird platforms out of Detroit, and as he gets ready to climb out of his car in victory lane, these two guys have done it again. This has got to be the umpteenth time these guys have teamed up. The real happy guy is Joe Aquilante.
We just look forward to a great season. We want to see great competition. We want to see just a good season, lots of competitors, lots of good racing, because I think our racing is among the best.
It was a great start to the 1998 season. Daytona International Speedway, the world center of speed. The stage for round number 1 of the Motorola Cup North American Street Stock Championship as the guys go for the champagne. And they sure have a lot of fun up there, there's no doubt about it. In Grand Sport, the overall winner as well. Hayner and Heinricy in the Pontiac Firebird, the 32 car. Pilgrim and Borchardt in the BMW were second.
It's Mike Fitzgerald and McMillan in a BMW, followed by Toyota, another BMW, and a pair of Acuras in the Sports Class Championship.
As far as touring at Daytona Beach, Joe Nonemaker and Will Pate in the 43 Mazda. Another Mazda immediately behind them, Paul Davinsky and Dick Storito, the 42 car.
Tiburon, Miata, Achieva, Miata, and Neon make up that compact class. This is where the competition is going to be really tight for the balance of the season, Jim.
All in all, a tremendous way to start off the season. We'll be back with more. Round 2 from Homestead is next. Welcome back. Homestead Motorsports Complex, the scene of round number 2 for the 1998 Motorola Cup.
Just about an hour south of Miami Beach, this new Homestead Motorsports Complex impressed a lot of drivers here in practice and qualifying. Some people saying just about like a mini Daytona.
Exactly, and as a matter of fact, some of the drivers saying they like the infield portion of this race course even better than the track at Daytona.
It definitely has a rhythm to it. On board with one of our onboard cameras with Didier Schreinen, the winner at Daytona.
All of the cars in the Motorola Cup run on ethanol-enhanced Sunoco Ultra 94 gasoline. It's the same kind of fuel that you can buy at the pump at your local dealership. Here's Peter Lockhart of the 94 Sunoco Camaro with more.
We're constantly watching the gauges. The oil temperature goes through the roof here. Water temperature is always on the borderline, and this is a serious problem. All of this comes back to making the engine live, and the quality of the fuel becomes a very important issue in that equation. We, of course, use the Sunoco Ultra 94 with ethanol, and not only does our engine run cooler because of that fuel, we actually think of the fuel as a safety device, because if fuel is not right up to spec, and we have to use a lower octane fuel, the chance of detonation in the motor is extremely high. And when everything else is pegged on the red line, you don't need that. Motor failures occur here from time to time. We haven't had a motor failure as a result, but we have to be extremely careful in the heat of southern Florida.
Looking back at the start, as everybody got lined up for the green flag, the field was all bunched up, and that's pretty much the way they stayed through a majority of this one. Right up front in particular, Jeff LAPCEVICH in the Zippo Ford Mustang leading the field into turn number one side by side. They ran door handle to door handle for about the first 10 laps of this one. Jeff LAPCEVICH holding off Devon Powell in that yellow Pontiac Firebird. A great battle out front.
You know, Mustangs and Camaros and Firebirds, the chief protagonists of this grand sports class for the last several years. This gives you an idea of how close the competition is from the interior of a car of Andy Pilgrim, a BMW M3, sort of mismatched under horsepower, but makes it up under braking and handling. There are your first four cars as we get started in this Homestead Motorsports round of the Motorola Cup.
And let me tell you, Andy Pilgrim in the BMW M3 had the best seat in the house as he watched these two guys go at it back and forth for the first 10 laps and then a pass.
Now, Powell would pass Jeff LAPCEVICH for the lead on lap number 11, a lead the Powell Motorsport Firebird number 11 would have for most of the race.
But it wasn't as if Jeff LAPCEVICH let him run away. Jeff was pushing real hard as he almost slides it off the island. And right after that pass, as a matter of fact, Jeff LAPCEVICH in the Ford Mustang giving it all he has just to try to hang on to the race leader. And all the time, the BMW is just hanging on, just watching this one transpire.
Hounding away. Now the BMW, you can see it's made its pit stop. Andy Pilgrim is out of the car. Terry Borcheller has gotten in the number 11 car, the Devon Powell car, the last among the top 5 to stop. Now Doug Goad will get in the car and take it all the way to the end. Devon Powell, a very sturdy shift, having the lead for most of his shift after overtaking Jeff LAPCEVICH in car number 17.
Now don't forget, it's a brand new car, the all-aluminum LS1 engine, not really being tested under race conditions, but boy, the car sure got tested here at Homestead. As well, Doug Goad had a little off-road excursion as we watch under braking as well. Some of the stuff that he collected in the little off-roading incident there is gradually falling out. Some of the gravel that Doug collected right here.
Well, you can see that Doug just simply overcooked a corner, and rather than trying to slide sideways into that, he's still under power from much of that, powering through the pea gravel and trying not to lose too many more positions as he gets out over the grass and back on there. But as you can see, having another look at that car, he found his brakes were absolutely cooked. Now 700 or 800 degrees, even those cool mechanics gloves, Jim, not enough to take care of that. You're gonna have to handle it very gingerly.
And part of the race strategy, now there's obviously time built in there as you change drivers to refuel the car, put on a new set of Dunlops, but changing brakes isn't really in the race strategy, unfortunately.
And here's a car with plenty of brakes left at the end of this contest. Terry Borcheller and Andy Pilgrim in that number 54 BMW M3 endured this Homestead heat and endured to the finish line as well. As Terry Borcheller, a very happy man, swoops down low to greet his crew on pit lane.
A happy team, no doubt about it. The winners of the round at Homestead, round number 2 of the Motorola Cup, Andy Pilgrim and Terry Borcheller in the BMW M3.
The Grand Sports class with Borcheller and Pilgrim on top of a Camaro with Lockhart and Duckworth. Powell and Goad finish up in 3rd place, and a couple of more Firebirds rounding out the top 5.
The standings after 2 rounds, Terry Borcheller and Andy Pilgrim, the teammates lead with 57 points each, just in front of Powell and Goad.
Mike FITZGERALD in the BMW is 3 Series car with 60 points ahead of a pair of BMWs with 45 and 32.
In the touring class after 2 rounds, Joe Nunnemaker and his teammate Will Pate on top of the standings with 32 and 30 points. A 3-way tie for second, by the way.
Consistency, the story in the compact round with Didier Schrein with 62 points over teammate Mark Craig in their new Hyundai Tiburons.
We'll be back with round number 3 from Montreal of the Motorola Cup. Welcome back to the Motorola Cup. It's round 3 from the Gilles Villeneuve circuit in Montreal for the first of 2 short 45-minute races we have on tap today. It's a little overcast and a little gray, and to be honest, like it usually is here in the island in the middle of the St. Lawrence River, a little cool today too.
It was a Pontiac Firebird who picked up the round at Daytona. A few weeks later, a BMW M3 picked up the win at Homestead Motorsports Complex. Here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, it's a Ford Mustang in the pole, piloted by this man, Scott Maxwell, no stranger to the circuit here called Gilles Villeneuve.
His teammate Jason Priestley having a little more difficulty. His first time on the circuit, he was 12th fastest overall with the new blonde hairdo.
Another tribute to Jacques Villeneuve, sporting the same hairdo 1 year ago at this circuit. You know, this Multimatic Motorsports team has 3 cars here at the track, the third being driven by Greg Wilkins. This man, Larry Holt, a very busy man this weekend, has his car and his team dialed in. Holt very well respected among his colleagues on both sides of the border.
Now Larry's team with the car on the pole, the number 45 Multimatic Ford Mustang. Scott Maxwell sits in the car. He's all ready to go today. Second on the grid, the ex-Undersecretary of State, Don Knowles, drives the black and yellow, the number 39 Phoenix American Motorsports Pontiac Firebird. The Firebird and the Ford Mustang once again side by side for the start of another race. Don Knowles looks pretty happy with the way things have turned out so far this weekend.
Jeff LAPCEVICH, also been here many, many times out of Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Car number 17, that distinctive Zippo Ford Mustang. Jeff LAPCEVICH looking very intense in the cockpit of that car as he gives us the slightest acknowledgement and goes back to his pre-race routine.
Jeff's pretty serious, looking for his first win of 1998 here in Montreal. A little further back in the field, Peter Lockhart, the number 94 Sunoco Chevrolet Camaro, the number 2 car in the Powell Motorsports team. A little behind him, we've got some real exotic machinery, though.
John Shirk, somebody who's no stranger to this circuit either. Been here many times in Honda sedans, also in other types of sedans. John Shirk, the number 28 Acura NSX. All aluminum body, all aluminum engine. What an exotic piece of machinery.
Absolutely, and right beside him, another of the exotic cars in the field. A little further back in the field from the front row, though. 6th fastest in qualifying, Dr. Stephen Earle from Texas in the Ferrari 348, the number 99 car. Again, another one of the cars to watch on this circuit. Should be pretty quick.
And if you've got a Ferrari, sooner or later, you're going to find a Porsche on the grid. This is the 1996 champion, Benoit THEETGE. He's starting in a Porsche 911 from the Denon Group. Richard Spinard also listed on that car.
Benoit THEETGE definitely going to be a force to be reckoned with as the cars roll off the grid. We'll be back in just a minute with the start of round number 3 of the Motorola Cup from Montreal. Welcome back. Round number 3 of the Motorola Cup for 1998. We're here in Montreal at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. On the front row of the field, a Ford Mustang and a Pontiac Firebird. Scotty Maxwell with the pole. Tom, it should be a very interesting start. We got a very big field.
A very big field and a very tight circuit on the back section. Here at the hairpin, they get into the horsepower section of this track that used to be straight through there. Now there's a little chicane in that thing, but from here at the hairpin, it's pretty much flat out through that little bend in the field down to a heavy braking area, which comes to a chicane that goes onto the front straightaway. That's the start-finish line. From there, a very tight left-right combination. That's always the site of a lot of incidents, and that's where most of the people here this weekend have gathered, not only for these cars, but the Formula One cars that are going to be running later on in the weekend.
And of course, at one end of the circuit on the east side, we've got the hairpin. At the other end of the circuit, we've got the big carousel. Both of them great places for the spectators and also terrific places to have cameras because there's always some kind of action going on.
This is a historic racing facility. Many of these drivers visiting this place for the very first time. A little intimidating to be running on the same circuit that Jacques Villeneuve, Michael Schumacher, Mika Hakkinen will be running on in just a day's time. Now, they're going through this last chicane onto the front straightaway. Not a standing start here, Jim Martin. Will be a rolling start as per usual.
Indeed, a rolling start. We've got the yellow and the green flags up. The yellow disappears in just a moment's time, and it looks as though the field's in pretty fair order. There goes the green. We are underway here in Montreal.
Already 5 wide as they have not quite reached the start-finish line yet. Now down to this left-hander, the scene of many an incident here in street stock racing.
Side by side through the first corner at speed, and the ACURA almost comes off the racetrack, but John Shirk does a good job of hanging on. Still in 6th place, though, the number 28 ACURA a little bit further back in the field. Everybody beginning to stretch things out. We've got cars 2 abreast, and in some cases, well, we try to make it 3. The Miata gets squeezed to the inside, but manages to get back onto the race circuit without any major incidents there.
Onto the back part of the circuit, on board with Jeff LAPCEVICH, what we call the rhythm part of the circuit here. The whole idea, keep your momentum up. Try not to bleed off too much speed. Some of these corners are decreasing radius. Other corners open right up as we get into the back part of the circuit, which ends ultimately in that big hairpin, Jim, that gets back into the horsepower.
A big straight piece of racetrack here along the north side of the race circuit as we watch over the shoulder of John Shirk. He gets passed by the number 32 of the Phoenix American Firebird into one of those heavy braking zones. A quick right-left combination that heads to the hairpin. He gets passed as well by Benoit THEETGE in the Porsche.
Now Mike FITZGERALD, further back in the field, only mildly interested in what's happening in front of him. He's really interested in what's happening behind him, because that's where the rest of the sports class competitors are.
The touring class, we go back and right along with Paolo Dalcin as he goes by to the inside, as a matter of fact, of one of the Tiburons, and yet passed on the other side by a Pontiac Firebird, one of the Grand Sport cars. One of the best things about the Motorola Cup racing, we got 4 different classes, some obviously very different speed potentials of the vehicles, and after qualifying, some of the cars in Grand Sports found themselves a little bit further back in the field, and they're gradually making their way toward the front again.
Now Devon Powell started 10th on the grid, but moving up well as Peter Lockhart has begun to drop back. That Peter Lockhart car, obviously his teammate. So now Devon Powell closing in the back of John Shirk.
The race beginning to settle down just a little bit, as we'll catch up with the race leaders. Scotty Maxwell goes by in first. Jeff LAPCEVICH runs second. The 99 Ferrari of Stephen Earle runs third. A little bit of a surprise. Benoit THEETGE up to 4th in the Porsche. Then it's John Shirk and Devon Powell rounding out the top 6. We watch the 2 Ford Mustangs heavy into the braking zone, into that chicane to the north end of the circuit once again. The Multimatic Ford Mustang of Scott Maxwell leading this one. The 2 Ford Mustangs putting on a bit of a show for the crowd today.
Well, horsepower is one part of this deal. Braking, obviously, handling. The other 2 credits to these Ford Mustangs. The Multimatic Motorsports crew has really worked this up, raised the bar for Kohler's team as well. Remember, this is an endurance series. This is a 45-minute sprint race, so all of the endurance rules are out. They just basically want to run as hard as they can.
A great battle through the chicane as we watch the Ferrari and Porsche run side by side, and that's the way they're going to come down the front straightaway as well. Who's got the most horsepower? Who has more nerve as they break for this real tight chicane as they come toward the pit lane once again.
Now Devon Powell and John Shirk, that's starting to heat up as well. Devon Powell getting the better of John Shirk under horsepower, and Shirk changes places as he's going to try to break a little deeper. Can he get it done? Yes, John Shirk down the inside gets that position back from Devon Powell.
Now in the Porsche, we got Benoit THEETGE, Stephen Earle in the Ferrari. Right behind him, John Shirk. Devon Powell has fallen back a notch. A great battle a little bit further back as the 2 Ford Mustangs have started to walk away from the rest of the crowd a little bit.
Well, the rhythm now starting to come to those Ford Mustangs as this epic battle between Porsche and Ferrari starts to unfold. The crowd here loves it. Now it's Acura and Pontiac. Devon Powell clearly wants that position. This is not the part of the racetrack he's likely to get it. This rhythm section with the braking and the handling should go advantage-wise to John Shirk.
John Shirk with the advantage in the twistier parts of the racetrack where there's a little bit of a straight line. I have a feeling the big motor, the LS1, the aluminum engine in the Pontiac Firebird should have the advantage over the much smaller motor in the Acura.
On the other hand, John Shirk making that Acura NSX very wide as now he's won that advantage. He's going to do everything he can to make it tough on Devon Powell. Now let's take another look at this, Jim. Really 2 battles happening on the track at the same time.
Absolutely. The Porsche and Ferrari pretty closely matched. The Porsche looks to drive a little deeper into the corner, but right behind them, hey, Devon Powell may have gotten surprised a little bit as John Shirk drives around the outside. Boy, a real nice move by John Shirk. We'll be back with more right after this. He's been able to stay close, but he hasn't been able to get back around. Devon Powell in the 11 car chasing down John Shirk, that number 28 Acura NSX. That's a battle for 5th place out on the racetrack, and well, so far it's kind of static, but it sure is great racing.
You know, the third character in this battle is Old Mo, meaning momentum. There's two things you need, mentum and momentum here around Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. John Shirk, the better player when it comes to carrying that momentum, especially in the part of the track that we're entering now, the north end of the circuit, where momentum really is more important than horsepower.
Absolutely. These guys really have to maintain as much of that as they possibly can, and it's all a matter of driving as smoothly as you dare. Now, a car with a little bit more horsepower, he can kind of point and squirt a little bit and maybe, you know, nip away at somebody who doesn't have the advantage of maintaining a nice, smooth driving style. John Shirk, though, doing a great job. Whoa, just trying to hold off Devon Powell in the 11 Pontiac Firebird, who is sliding the car around now, trying to catch up to the Acura, the more nimble car out front.
The whole idea here during this battle is not to lose touch with the guys in front of him. There goes the Porsche, Ferrari, Mustang. That's who John Shirk needs to stay in touch with. He can't concentrate on Powell too much, or else he's going to lose touch with these leaders back out in front of him.
Hey, a great battle going on. That's fifth, of course. It's John Shirk, sixth, the number 11 Firebird. Right behind them, Peter Lockhart, of course, running in seventh spot right now. Catching up to the race leaders through the hairpin. It's still a two Mustang battle as Scotty Maxwell continues to hold off Jeff LAPCEVICH. Those two cars have been running within about 20-25 yards of each other the entire contest. The two of them slowly pulling away from the balance of the field, but not at a great rate. You can still see in the background the Porsche of Benoit THEETGE running in third.
All right, so it's THEETGE and then Steve Earle in the Ferrari. Now here comes Devon Powell one more time in his assault on John Shirk. Now has just about a car on him as they approach this hard braking area into the right-left onto the chicane to the front straightaway.
Almost looks like an instant replay as John Shirk drives to the outside. This time, Devon Powell's not going to give him nearly enough running room. Devon Powell holds off and now takes over fifth spot with a big slide out of the chicane coming onto the front straightaway. Devon Powell steals away fifth place with a real nice move, gets a little bit of an advantage onto the hairpin, and we'll get another look at this. It all started with a little bobble by John Shirk in the hairpin.
The hairpin, the most important corner on this entire race surface. That's where you're going the slowest. You need to carry all your momentum through here. Look how fast these cars are going through 100 miles an hour here, and that number 11 car with the 400 horsepower Pontiac just blows by him.
Benoit THEETGE starting to make an impression on Jeff LAPCEVICH. The Zippo Tim Horton Ford Mustang running in second spot, and he's got a mirror full of that blue denim Porsche immediately behind him. The blue and yellow Porsche running in third. We've got a great battle on our hands now for second place as Jeff LAPCEVICH in the Ford Mustang, a pretty well-balanced automobile, really gives up a lot of territory when it comes to the braking zones around the race circuit.
All right, let's look in on Devon Powell now. Released from the 28 car of John Shirk, really starting to use that horsepower. Now right up behind the number 99 car, Dr. Steve Earle in that Ferrari. Devon Powell has broken through. Oh, by the look of it, so has Peter Lockhart got by the Acura NSX as well. So Stephen Earle now almost in the clutches of Devon Powell. We'll see what he can do with him in the next set of corners.
Absolutely. It looked as though John Shirk, you were saying earlier on that John was driving one of the wider cars out on the racetrack, and it really does appear as though he was holding up a couple of people, Devon Powell in particular, as Devon now with a little bit of straightaway to work on, uses the horsepower to advantage as he gets up beside Stephen Earle in the Ferrari, heavy in the braking zone, can't quite make the pass into the corner, into that hairpin. It's going to be an interesting contest over the next couple of corners to see whether or not Devon can get by the black 99 Ferrari.
Devon Powell did make a great exit on that corner. Now let's go back to this argument over the second position. A Ford Mustang, a Porsche 911. Benoit THEETGE now down the inside of that car. LAPCEVICH unable to hold him off. THEETGE goes all the way through using all the track out into the runoff area, and all LAPCEVICH can do is sit and watch.
That runoff area was grass at one time. They've paved it, but in order to, keep the decorum around the racetrack, they painted it green. It is a piece of the racetrack that everybody's using, though. The last time we saw him, Benoit THEETGE and Jeff LAPCEVICH both using the far side of the corner. Now the race, Devon Powell up side by side with the Ferrari again, under braking. It's Stephen Earle in the Ferrari managing to hold on to that spot. Devon Powell is all over the back bumper of the car, doing everything but touching the black number 99 machine out in front of him. At the exit of the carousel at the west end of the circuit. Again, side by side, they run toward the twistier parts of the racetrack. Again, under braking. Stephen Earle shading just a little bit to the inside. He's going to make it tough for Devon Powell. If Devon's going to get by Stephen Earle, he's going to do it the hard way today, I'm afraid. Or Stephen Earle's going to have to make some kind of a mistake. Speaking of mistakes, the 78 Firebird with a quick spin.
back with his battle with Earl and Devon Powell. You know, for the club racers out there, this is a perfect example of how to sort of protect your position and not make too many moves to show how that you're doing it. In the meantime, Devon Powell has used that horsepower advantage once again to draw alongside as we head down into this big braking area. It's a formula now that Devon Powell has to figure out under braking how to stay ahead of the 99 car.
Manages to do it this time by taking the inside line well before the corner and not giving Stephen Earle the advantage of at least track position. Coming into the corner, and we witness as Devon Powell gets around Stephen Earle and now uses that horsepower again. The Pontiac, once he's got a clear racetrack, is one quick automobile.
Now Steve Earle has got a mirror full of the number 94 car as well, as Peter Lockhart watches that whole thing happen, decides that maybe he can pull up alongside the Ferrari as well. But the story, Devon Powell moving steadily up through this field.
Now we watch this one again as Devon Powell gets up beside him. Well before the braking area, gives him lots of running room, some great gentlemanly driving on both parts as Devon Powell gets up beside and makes the pass on Stephen Earle, a pass he's been working on for several laps. Stephen Earle learns a lesson, and the next corner it comes into the carousel, shades to the inside, and doesn't give Peter Lockhart that same advantage.
Now traffic starting to become part of the factor here as the 48 car of Ed Magner starting to play into this thing as well. On the front straightaway, going to be gathered up by Devon Powell. Magner points Devon Powell by on the inside. Powell accepts the invitation and goes straight through. It's a question as to whether Magner can stay out of the way of the leaders as they come through.
Let's get another look at a replay of that pass for second place, Benoit Tiege in the Porsche 911 as he gets up beside the fading Ford Mustang of Jeff Lapcevich. To the inside, makes a nice clean move and steals away second spot.
Now Devon Powell on the charge, trying to push Jeff Lapcevich. We'll be right back after these words.
Welcome back to the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal, round 3 of the Motorola Cup. Scotty Maxwell, the 45 Ford Mustang, the leader, gets by one of the compact class Hyundai Tiburons. Scott Maxwell has had this one well in hand from the green flag and has basically run away with it. A great job by not only Scott, but the team that prepared the race car for him, as he's had this one pretty easy today.
The P2 position in this class is Benoit Tiege, almost the full straightaway back. Benoit Tiege having to make up some room here if he's going to catch Scott Maxwell here in Montreal.
He's really got his work cut out for him because Scott hasn't had anybody except a few backmarkers to deal with over the course of our contest. It's only a 45-minute sprint race, but Scott Maxwell has really done an expert job, and so far has been the class of the field, not only driving wise but automobile wise too. The Ford Mustang seems to be extremely well suited. It's got just the right blend of horsepower and handling for the Grand Prix circuit in Montreal. Benoit Tiege running in second spot, and now a battle for third developing as Devon Powell gets by Jeff Lapcevich, the Ford Mustang, the 17 car fading as we head into the middle stretches of our race here today. Benoit Tiege, on the other hand, having things all his way, runs in very comfortable second place right now.
Well, a key thing in this battle is that Benoit Tiege really hasn't had that large of an argument with any one car. Meanwhile, Jeff Lapcevich and Devon Powell have had a constant argument from the beginning of this race. And Jeff Lapcevich, I dare say, has used up one heck of a lot of car.
It seems to have been, as we ride along with Benoit Tiege in the Porsche, we get a driver's perspective around the circuit. As the 911 heads into the hairpin one more time, the crowd, pretty substantial crowd, I might add, keeping an eye on our Motorola Cup round as we watch the 911 as he continues to circulate just a touch of the brakes through the apex of the corner as he is gradually catching up to some of the back markers. The number 11 Devon Powell Pontiac Firebird as well. Once he's gotten by Jeff Lapcevich, Lapcevich again has fallen down another spot as Stephen Earle in the Ferrari has gotten by. It looks as though Peter Lockhart will be next. As you mentioned earlier, it certainly seems as though Jeff Lapcevich is nursing the Ford Mustang and just trying to get by the finish, I think.
You can see just about a half a car width inside, trying to tell Peter Lockhart, don't try to go down the inside, I'll block you there. Peter Lockhart not really in a position to make a pass. However, Jeff Lapcevich is the prey now. Peter Lockhart is the big bird.
It seems as though we've got a bit of a battle for third place here. Devon Powell leading this one. Stephen Earle runs in fourth. Fifth place right now, Jeff Lapcevich in the Ford Mustang trying to hold on to that spot. And right behind him, we've got Peter Lockhart, the number 94 Chevrolet Camaro, driving by to the inside and steals away the spot. Jeff Lapcevich drops down another notch as our race continues.
So Peter Lockhart, who's been here many times, beginning to work his way up through the field. Probably the most impressive performance, Jim Martin, has been the one of Dr. Stephen Earle in that Ferrari. Really able to keep his momentum up and to keep that car going well. You know, somewhat of a motorsport legend has set that car up for this circuit, none other than Craig Fisher, the former co-driver of Mark Donohue on Penske's Camaro team from 1968.
There's certainly a lot of skill gone on as far as setting up the Ferrari 348 for the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve here today. The 348 Ferrari with Stephen Earle, who among other things has been driving Ferraris for years and years in the Ferrari Challenge, now brings his talent to the Motorola Cup this year and is making a bit of an impression as far as Devon Powell in the yellow number 11 Pontiac Firebird in front of him.
So it's a Pontiac and then a Ferrari, another Pontiac, then a Ford Mustang. Not too far behind that Ford Mustang, John Shirk in an Acura NSX, an indication of the wide panorama of vehicles here in the Grand Sports class in the Motorola Cup Challenge.
We sure have a whole bunch of cars, and the one car we don't want to forget is that number 45 Ford Mustang, which is running out front. Scotty Maxwell unchallenged from the green flag today. The best battle, though, a little further back.
You know, Scotty Maxwell just been a picture of car management here. He's been smooth, he's been able to run out front and use that as an advantage to run away. He's beginning to work the traffic very masterfully as well. The whole idea is to keep a well-balanced car under you, not too hard on the brakes, not too hard on the throttle, paying wide dividends for Scott Maxwell in car number 45.
From time to time, the drivers will say that qualifying isn't really paramount, but Scotty Maxwell has probably proven that theory wrong today. He started on the pole, and he's had things all his way from the green flag. He hasn't had to race anybody, which has been what it's all about. If somebody's found themselves in a real heated contest with somebody, it's extremely easy to overdrive the car, use up the tires, use up your race car, and then when you get to this stage of the race, you have to watch people go by because you can't keep up anymore.
Well, look at John Shirk's brakes. Those front rotors glowing cherry red as he starts to reel in Jeff LAPCEVICH now. The Hamilton, Ontario driver starting to look in his rear view mirrors a little more. You can see he's trying to drive a wide car as well, trying to protect that position.
As Tom had mentioned off the top, the Acura, for the most part, probably has more aluminum in it than any car out here. The lighter of the two race cars as we watch this battle continue. The light Acura with a little more brakes left has saved a little bit more as far as the tire wear is concerned as we approach the end of this one. Jeff LAPCEVICH, the other side of the coin, using every bit of racecraft he possibly can to hold on to that spot. We'll be back with more as the race continues from Montreal. The number 19 Porsche runs in second spot. Just behind him, Devon Powell, the number 11, the yellow Pontiac Firebird, runs in third. We're at INT'L Notre Dame in Montreal for round number 3 of the Motorola Cup. I'm Jim Martin along with Tom Natchu. Now we see the exact distance from second to third as Devon Powell tries to chase down Benoit THEETGE. A little further back in the field now, trying to hold on to 7th spot currently. That number 17 of Jeff LAPCEVICH has fallen through the field.
The crowd beginning to respond now to Jocelyn Hebert in that yellow bow tie car. He's started to make a real impression here as he begins to make his assault on car number 17. Behind him, David Lacey, as Jocelyn Hebert decides to slide that car a little bit. David Lacey in that Oppenheimer CIBC car, followed by the number 44 Ferrari of Alex Rangos.
All those cars in the top 10, a battle for 7th place out on the racetrack. The race leaders have run away a little bit, but we've got an even better battle a little bit further back. Jocelyn Hebert driving the wheels off the Camaro as he approaches the final couple of laps of our contest here, trying to make up another spot, and he can see Jeff LAPCEVICH now.
Camaro, Mustang, Ferrari. It's happening here in the Motorola Cup. Truly a showcase for the international cars in this Grand Sports category. The Miata now becomes a part of history as this battle continues.
The Grand Sport cars go by the compact class Miata fairly easily on the backside of the race circuit, but notice in the twisty parts, the Miata kid does a pretty fair job of holding on to them. However, once they get onto the straightaways, the big horsepower tends to walk away just a little bit. The Miata now another lap down to the race leaders.
Jocelyn Hebert in car number 89 with an eye on David Lacey in his rearview mirror, but mostly looking forward to getting by Jeff LAPCEVICH. He knows his car is hurting, knows he can make up that position if he can just stay smooth, Jim Martin.
If he just has enough time. We're approaching the final couple of moments, and we got a retirement out on the racetrack. The 96 Firebird of Joe Kent stops in along pit lane. His day is done before the checkered comes on.
Now the battle for 8th place, car number 7 of David Lacey and the car number 89 of Jocelyn Hebert. Hebert has to be careful not to run this car too hard because David Lacey posed to strike, and Rangos in the Ferrari right there with Lacey as well.
David Lacey sees the Ferrari coming up to the inside and shades just a little bit and steals away that spot just so the Ferrari doesn't tuck inside, approaching the hairpin. The last lap sign comes out, one more round.
David Lacey going to have to give up on his assault of Jocelyn Hebert and try to keep Alex Rangos behind him, as it's a Mustang, a Camaro, a Mustang, and a Ferrari arguing over the last 4 spots in this top 10.
The final couple of corners now coming up the north side of the circuit again for the final time at speed, as Scott Maxwell has had this one well in hand. The Trizec Hahn Ford Mustang continues to circulate just as quick as it did at the opening lap, as Scott Maxwell, the Multimatic Motorsports squad, going to be pretty happy with the way this weekend has turned out. The team puts the car on the pole, the green flag falls, and Scott Maxwell hasn't put a wheel wrong. He's just got a couple of corners to go, and the last thing I want to do is jinx him.
Car number 19, that's Benoit running in 2nd place. And then the number 11 car of Devon Powell, who's had his work definitely cut out for him today, running in 3rd as we get down to the final checkered flag.
The only thing Scott Maxwell has done wrong today, well, as far as the television coverage is concerned anyway, he's done too darn good a job as he wheels the car around the hairpin for the last time, as he's looking for the checkered flag the next time he goes down the start-finish line. He's done too good a job, and, well, most of the racing has been behind him, which is where the television cameras have been focused all day. But I'm pretty sure that Larry Holt and the team will be just as pleased to bring the car home first. He hasn't put a wheel wrong all day long. That's the modular engine Ford, the 4.6-liter engine. Again, a new engine for the team in 1998, and it appears as though it's just the right mix for the Grand Prix circuit here at Montreal.
And perfectly complementing Scott Maxwell's driving style. Smooth. There aren't enough O's in smooth to describe Scotty Maxwell, and just as I say that, he slides the car wide. So it was a Pontiac Firebird in round 1, then an M3 in round 2, a Ford Mustang in round 3 here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. It's all over but the crying here at Montreal.
Scotty Maxwell in the Mustang wins. 2nd goes to the number 19 Porsche 911 of Benoit THEETGE, and the 11 car of Devon Powell, the Pontiac Firebird, finishes in 3rd spot. Scott Maxwell, a pretty happy driver as he goes around for one cool-down lap and gets a little round of applause from everybody around the circuit. Scotty Maxwell, our race winner. Benoit THEETGE 2nd, Devon Powell 3rd. Stephen Earle in the Ferrari ended up in 4th.
Peter Lockhart rounding up that one. Let's look at the points now. Doug Goad and Devon Powell tied in that Pontiac Firebird, followed by Scotty Maxwell with 71.5. Terry Borcheller rounding out that top 4.
In sport class, Mike Fitzgerald and Mike Culver, the BMW pilots, 1st and 2nd with 96 and 52 points, respectively. Daryl Havens is 3rd.
Now it's a couple of Acuras ahead of a Mazda in this touring class round. 53 points is the tie for these 2 Acura Integras.
And as far as the compact class, it's Hyundai time with the Tiburons 1, 2, and 3. Mark Craig and Didier Strainen, the teammates, tied with 87 each.
So Scott Maxwell arrives in victory lane. Larry Holt reaches in, gives him a big old handshake there. A cool day here at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Scott Maxwell has finally done it, finally won an international round of endurance racing.
Scott Maxwell, a pretty happy driver, there's no doubt about it. The team very pleased with the way things have turned out today. Everything went right. The car was on the pole. Scott did a great job from the green flag to the checkered. Scott Maxwell, a very happy man, the StarTech star of the race.
Scotty Maxwell put one heck of a drive together as he was smooth all the way through this thing. A very happy man as we caught up to him.
Yeah, very happy. I mean, we've had a struggle at the start of the year, so it's a good start for us, but this one's for the crew. They've worked really hard for the last 3 weeks. Multimatic Motorsports, it's a brand new car, and the Ford Mustang didn't miss a beat, and this one's for them. They worked a lot of late nights.
Now here's Doug Brownridge, Director of Marketing for Motorola North America.
With so many people in North America now using cell phones, one of the most common questions we're asked at Motorola is what's the simplest way to get hands-free capability while using your phone in car? What we would recommend is definitely one of these easy-to-use headsets that simply plug into the top of most phones, allowing you to make a call quickly and return both hands to safe driving position.
Scotty Maxwell, not only the StarTech star of the race, but our race winner as well, up on the top step of the podium where he certainly belongs after a perfect race.
Today's program brought to you by Motorola, the proud sponsors of the North American Street Stock Championship, the Motorola Cup.
And by Dunlop. Handle it with Dunlop tires.
And by STP Products, the edge in high performance. Get your car into STP shape.
We'll be back with more from Montreal in just a moment. One last look at the victory podium here in Montreal for round number 3. The top 3 finishers in each of the 4 classes with champagne, so there's lots to go around. The fastest lap award, the Speed Stick fastest lap award, goes to John Heinricy, who started all the way back in 8th position. Did a great job today, even for the middle of the field. John Heinricy is looking forward to a great 1998 season in this North American Street Stock Championship.
Well, there's some really tight racing going on, especially between the Canadians and the drivers from the United States, and that kind of makes it a lot more fun. We haven't had as many Canadians in the series before, and there's an awful lot of talent in Canada, so it's really fun to race against them.
After 3 rounds of the Motorola Cup, the Castrol Most Laps Led Award being led this far by Devon Powell. What a great job he did at Homestead Motorsports Complex, where he led almost all of the laps there. That performance was enough to power him through here at round 3, even though he didn't lead a lap at Montreal. So it's Powell, HAYNER, Maxwell, and Heinricy rounding up the top 4. We had a chance to talk to Devon after this race.
Yeah, we're just taking our time trying to get used to the racetrack, but the Powell Motorsport Pontiac Firebird ran just fantastic. Can't thank Wheel to Wheel enough for their assistance. It was just fantastic.
Another award we have to talk about is the Derringer Most Positions Gained Award. It's where you go from the starting grid to the finish of every race, and we add them all up. Terry McDonald could do a great race in both Homestead and Daytona, climbing through the pack. So Terry McDonald leads the Derringer standings, the only woman in the Motorola Cup so far in '98. Terry McDonald leading Scott Maxwell and Doug Goad. So that wraps up our coverage of round number 3 from Montreal. On behalf of Tom Nacho, I'm Jim Martin. We'll see you next time with more great racing for the Motorola Cup North American Street Stock Championship.